Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, away we go. 4 teams remain, 2 series left until we get to the NBA Finals. And, of course, a lot to discuss happening in the Philadelphia sports world. A late one last night. A great spot by the legendary man by the name of Tom McCarthy, T-Mac, with the statistic. The Phillies were 1-15 when trailing after 7, I want to say it was. And then next thing you know, Alec Boehm puts them on top with a 2-run bomb to center. Of course, the boys held off at the end, added a couple more to close up shop, and a big-time win over those Colorado Rockies.
Tough competition.
Who have played 47 total games, Mark Henry Jr., and have won 8. And yes, there was a moment or two throughout the course of last night's game that I go, it would be funny to see them lose to this team, but they're professionals at the end of the day. Shout out to the Phillies for coming through and getting that victory. And shout out to Mark Henry Jr. back on the road in some city, town in Illinois, joining us here on a Daily Ticket. It's a Tuesday. Mark, how we doing today, sir?
Doing well. The Colorado Rockies are on pace for 27 and 135 right now. But don't worry, Phillies have 3 more chances at a heartbreaking loss this week.
27 wins. Trying to think, so I always tell this story. I went to Colorado one time, went to Denver one time, and it was this was just a couple years ago, it was pre-kids, all that, 16, 15, whatever it may have been. Wife and I go out there, we partake. It was a huge deal for us. Only place that was legal at the time. So we get out there. Great vibes. Unbelievable area. Of course, you can hike, and it's just unbelievable. Next thing you know, the Padres, it was in the middle of the summer, and the Rockies were playing at San Diego, and they were the 2 teams at the top. If I'm not mistaken, I think they were tied for first place halfway through the season. There is a ballpark bar that's similar to Xfinity Live right outside Coors Field. So I go, all right, the Rockies are on the road. Let's go to a place that I know is going to have some jam, some buzz. So we go there. Mark, I kid you not, place was packed, 100 TVs. If I'm lying, I'm dying. Not one of them had the Rockies game on. Not one. It was literally the second inning of the game. I walk in, guy from Philadelphia, and had to ask them to put the game on, that they literally are 90 yards away from home plate when they're at home. And I don't know, again, I just think we are so lucky to be in Philadelphia, be sports fans in this city because we care and it's so important to us. And then you go around and you look at some of these ballparks and it's like you can hear a pin drop. Like last night watching that Rockies game, there was more Philly fans in the building than anything. It's just, that's a bad organization, man. And I hate to say I feel for them because I don't even feel for them. Like they're the Rockies.
I think they're the most irrelevant franchise in sports. Taking hockey out, I don't know hockey as much to parse that apart. The big 3, the American professional sports, not the fake Canadian.
The most irrelevant franchise in sports
of the NFL, MLB, NBA.
Okay.
I don't think there's a more irrelevant franchise than the Colorado Rockies. Maybe Charlotte, the Hornets.
It's a good one.
The Charlotte Hornets are up there. The Pelicans are probably up there.
Yeah, Pelicans were one of the first that came to my mind too as well.
That almost feels like cheating though, because those teams, I guess Colorado's kind of new too though.
Mid 90s, early 90s.
Yeah,
90s.
They're relatively new as well. So it's
6. Yeah.
It's similar. Yeah. I mean, Luke's right. Bryce said it best. They're a loser organization. They've won 76 plus games twice in 15 years. The last 15 years, not 500. They've won more than 76 games twice in the last 15 years. So, just an organization that does not care about its fans. And it's funny, their attendance is actually usually in the top 10, even over the last 5 to 10 years. Yes,
it's got to be the opposing fans. It has to be. That's a good spot to
I'm
go.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, people love the ballpark. People say it's one of the nicest ballparks in baseball. One of the ones I definitely have on the list to get to. And part of it is just like they're screwed forever because they'll never get a pitcher to ever sign there. With the way that the altitude is and the ballpark. It's such a high run ballpark. The only way that they can ever get pitching talent is to develop it, and that's hard to do, and they've shown no ability to do so.
Yeah, look, it was brought up yesterday on the broadcast where they went out and had all these pitchers, and I'm not even going to pretend to name them, but they had young talent. They went and paid all these guys. I thought it would pay off. It's just a tough ballpark, like you said, to keep the ball in the yard, A, and then B, when you do make mistakes, signing Chris Bryant, and you spend all that money on the wrong player, it's only going to set you back. It's a shame, though, because like you said, it is a nice ballpark. A lot of people like to go there. I don't know, maybe on the flip side of that, for opposing fans, at least when you're going to go to Colorado, you're going to see a victory, right? Like, that's always good. But, man, last night I'm just watching that game. I'm like, come on, dude. Like, everybody was just busting their stones, how many wins they had, and they're going to go and lose game one. Again, I'm not going to lose my mind over it. I just was like, don't lose. Come on. Let's find a way to win. And the Phillies did. They battled back. And, I want to bring up this. What does that stat do to you, if anything, albeit May 20th, that this team, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he said 1-15 after trailing after 7 innings. Does that mean anything to you? Does that do anything to you? Like, we know what we know about this team. We know their deficiencies, but where is the big bat, right? Besides Schwarber in that 8th or 9th inning. I don't know. It hit me when you go only one time that they've come out on top and found a way to win out of 16 opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to what's been my concern with this team all along, is that the third bopper doesn't exist. We don't have that third power bat. We're so contact dependent, which is not a place I ever thought we'd get to with this Phillies roster and this Phillies era of baseball, but it's where we're at. What I'd say is, like, it was kind of, I think I don't know if this was on my show or on your show where I talked about this a couple weeks ago, but I think part of why we were so heightened concern about the bullpen, it's a little different story now without Alvarado around, but why we were so concerned to start the year with the bullpen was because every game was close. Every game was coming down to a run or two because we weren't getting those power explosions, those 3-run homers that put you up in the game comfortably to the point where you're not up 1 run. So if every game is close or every game is tied or we're down 1 in every game, every run that the bullpen gives up feels like a killer, as opposed to when you're down 6-2 and a bullpen gives up a run, or you're up 8-1 and the bullpen gives up a run. It's a different feeling. Whereas I think early in the year, every run that the bullpen gave up it felt like completely changing the complexion of the game. And I think that kind of is, I think that's what that stat is. I think that stat goes back to us not blowing teams out. I'm actually curious. I wonder what the Phillies record is on the run line, because I can't imagine it's great. I can't imagine that they've won a ton of games by multiple runs. And I know that they're like minus 180 tonight on the run line, minus 1.5. This is bad radio. My apologies. It's actually better than I thought. 19-19. So I guess they have about half the time covered as a 1.5 run line. That's surprising though, because it does feel like every game, 7th to the 9th inning, we're clenching and hoping. Basically, it does feel like that. But what I will say is, does it concern me? It's hard to be too concerned when we have the best record in the National League. I mean, who would have thought sitting here on May 20th that we have a better record than Shohei Ohtani and Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts and Tyler Glasnow's out, but Yamamoto and Sasaki.
Wait, the 2025 World Series champions? You mean to tell me?
Yeah. It's pretty shocking that we're sitting here. And I was relatively high on this team coming into the year. I thought they'd win 94, 95 games and compete for the division, but I was higher on Atlanta. But the fact that you're sitting here, 2 months into the year with a better record than, let alone anybody in the NL, but especially the Dodgers, I think it has to quell any concerns that you do have about that power bat. Now they have needs, and I hope they address them, but they're a really good team.
Nobody hotter right now when it comes to the world of sports gambling than Mark Henry Jr., host of the Tough Cover radio show every Saturday from 11 to 1. Ho-hum, Mark is giving out winners left and right, cash and tickets, and putting everything out on socials as he has done his whole entire time of I've known this man. Nobody is more transparent when it comes to the world of sports gambling than Mark Henry Jr. And if they are,
I appreciate that.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Like nobody puts their plays up first thing in the morning than you, brother. So yes, you are a hell of a run right now. So I want to talk a little bit more. You brought up the National League. Yeah, I won't lie. I had a little bit of some stuff going on last week that kind of took me off the radar. When I pulled out my laptop yesterday and saw the Detroit Tigers have the best record in baseball, yeah, my jaw was on the floor. We know what took place last year. It was an unbelievable story. But then you change and everything, just the narratives completely flip. And now we're talking about a team with expectations. Yeah, they have some pretty good ball players. They have an overall number 1 draft pick in Torkelson. They got some other players out there that have been high draft picks. Of course, we know Screwball, what he's been able to do. One of the best pitchers in baseball, if not the best. But now we start to talk about the Detroit Tigers in a different manner. Like the expectations there for this team moving forward, Mark, are what? Like, are we talking about a team that could compete for a World Series here?
You can at least compete to go to it. I'm of the mindset that the NL, I don't think I can ever remember in any sport feeling the way that I feel the disparity between the NL and the AL. I think the NL is planets better than the AL. And I felt that way coming into the year. I know Mike Chiodo, good Phillies Twitter follow, was really beating that drum all off season and saying, I think his take was that the top 7 NL teams were better than the best AL team. And I don't know if I'd still say that because Atlanta was considered in there. And some teams I don't think have lived up to what we thought they'd be. But I think the NL is far, far better than the AL. I think the AL is wide open for anybody who wants to go take it. I mean, you just run down the top of the list. You've got Detroit. And yeah, the Detroit thing is all the guys are putting it together at the same time. Riley Green, big prospect. He's got an 836 OPS all of a sudden. Spencer Torkelson, you mentioned him. He was a super prospect, 885 OPS. Kerry Carpenter, who my buddy Pat Moran likes to refer to as Kerry Bonds. He loves his power, Kerry Carpenter. 812 OPS. And then you have Gleyber Torres, the guy they brought in this offseason to fill the role there as just a solid middle infielder. He's got an 808 OPS with a 284 average. But the number one story with this Tigers season, I think, is the reemergence of one of the most fun players in baseball in Javi Baez. I mean, this was a guy who was one of the faces of baseball when he was on the Cubs, or at least one of the most swaggy, fun to watch, highlight driven players in the league. And you look at, his Detroit tenure, it's been an absolute disaster. The first 3 years in Detroit, 671 OPS, 593 OPS, 516 OPS. He's up to 811 OPS, hitting 291 this year. All of a sudden, and he's even in those years where he was bad at the plate, he's always been a great fielder and he'll always be a great fielder. But the fact that he's giving you what he's giving you at the plate, while he's obviously going to, give you what he gives you in the field, he's the type of guy where I think his energy and swagger is kind of contagious through a ball club. And I think we saw that with some of those Cubs teams. And I think we're seeing it now with this Tigers team. This Tigers team thinks they're the best team on the field every game. And how could you not, with the way that they've started this year, the way that they ended last year? I don't think there's anything fraudulent about what's going on with the Tigers. You got the Yankees. We thought they'd fall off without Soto. Every piece that they've brought in this offseason has looked great. Max Fried is the best pitcher in baseball this year. Cody Bellinger's red hot. Paul Goldschmidt turned back the clock. Like Seattle, the whole thing on Seattle was that they have this great rotation, but no good hitters. They've got like a top 5 offense in baseball by every metric all of a sudden. These guys who we all kind of had wrote off or thought weren't going to be very good as hitters, all kind of coming back around. And it's wide. Minnesota, a team that was dead a couple of weeks ago even. They're 9-1 in their last 10 now. Yeah. My pick in the AL was Kansas City. They're still hanging around at 27-22. It's wide open in the AL.
Yeah, there's a lot going on as far as in both leagues, as you pointed out, a little bit more so as far as the National League winning in every one of the divisions. As far as National League is concerned, there are 3 teams. Even in the West, there are 4 teams above 500, but each division has 3 teams above 500 at this point in time. And it's just crazy because you want to see teams separate themselves, but a lot of these teams are holding steady, and we just don't know who's real and who's not at this point in time. But that's the fun part of sports wagering, and that's why the Detroit Tigers are a great question right here, right now, because I know a lot of people were similar to me, paying attention. We understand what took place last year. We know that they have some good pieces, good manager who's won before. Great manager, right? So they're putting it together. I don't think we should be surprised, but then you throw the best record in baseball, and I'm like, whoa, I was not prepared for that. Of course, they lost last night to the St. Louis Cardinals. Oh, by the way, a pretty hot team in their own right.
My father-in-law, diehard Cardinals fan, fun fact.
Good.
So I have to talk about the St. Louis Cardinals a lot with my father-in-law, and I stay up on them and track them pretty closely to keep up in conversation. This was the team I thought was going to win like 65 games, 70 games. Wow. I am floored by what's happening there. And I think that they've beaten up on a really brutal schedule recently with some bad teams. So maybe it doesn't last here, but 27-21, and they came into Philly and took 2 or 3. It might have been in St. Louis. I can't remember, but they took 2 or 3. Louis, yep. They took 2 or 3 from us. So it's not like it's been all bad teams that they've been beating. I think they probably end up missing the playoffs, and I think they're probably fraudulent. Wow. But I mean, they've shocked me this far. I mean, it's the team I took the under on like 74.5 wins on.
To make the playoffs right now on the St. Louis Cardinals. Of course, this is a market that you can make money on, or at least take a shot at right now on the no, minus 250. Plus 210 on the yes. Again, it May 20th, a lot of baseball to be played, but a decent number. And that type of wager gets you involved, right? Like that's the cool thing about that wager is like you might not care about the St. Louis Cardinals at all, but then now you place that wager, and oh, by the way, now you're checking that box score every single morning and at night, seeing what they're doing, so on and so forth.
Yeah, I had an big Arizona future to make the playoffs last year. And then it came down to like the last day of the year, and the Mets made it instead, or someone made it instead. So that broke me last year, because that would have been a big winner. Because I think I bet it when Arizona was like really down in the dumps at plus 500 or 600 to make the playoffs or something. Out of curiosity, where are the Cubs at in terms to make the playoffs? I know that they're favored to win the division, so it's going to be lighter, but
Cubbies to make the playoffs at minus 290 on the yes, on the no plus 230.
Vegas knows they've played the hardest schedule in baseball, and it's not
really.
Yeah, and if you look at their upcoming schedule here, and they, to be fair, they did just sweep or even just their last little bit here. They took 2 or 3 from the Marlins. They just took 3 of 3 from the White Sox. They have 3 more against the Marlins. They have 3 against the Reds. They have 3 against the Rockies. 3 against the Reds, and then they play the Nationals. So their next like 15 games, they're going to probably end up at the top of the NL in the next couple weeks here, because they got all their Dodgers series and their tough Braves, Phillies, Mets type series out of the way a little bit in April. So, and they'll come back and they'll have a hard schedule down the stretch, I'm sure, at some point. But this next little stretch here for the Cubs, maybe something to watch for. I could see them going on a tear.
All right. Well, back to the Phillies, 840. We'll put a bow on this one again. I can't really get too crazy about this. This is just a series that they should sweep, a game that they should win. Luzardo on the mound at minus 285, total coming in at 10.5. 840 first pitch here. Anything you want to add? And then I want to ask you about Alvarado and of course, like, what's the next move for Dombrowski here?
Yeah, I mean, this is an unbettable game. Like minus 280, or you're gonna lay 2.5 runs with them, or you bet like the team total at like 6.5. I just don't think there's a bet for this one.
Yeah. All right. Shout out to Schwarber hitting 300 bombs yesterday. Harper's playing well since he shaved his head. I saw that on the folks over at Crossing Broad had that number. Let's talk about
the Joel Embiid head shave in November is going to be legendary. We just have to get it for every team. We got it with Nick. Bryce is red hot.
The camera's over there. Sorry.
That was funny. But I don't know. It doesn't have to be Joel. Maybe Maxey goes with the buzz cut. Maybe I don't see it for Jared McCain. Maybe Nick Nurse has to
I think
That's
JoJo has
about
had like short hair before, right?
Yeah, yes. He's had a
I
bunch of
thought,
different hairstyles.
yes. He's been here for over a decade. So, yeah, we've seen it all and then some. We do have NBA discussion coming our way. We will hit on that, and we'll have some fun as what's going on with the future of this franchise when it comes to the NBA draft. I can't wait to hear your thoughts on that.
You know that I checked out of the Sixers season pretty early, and I just couldn't spend my mentals on it. And
Same.
I think maybe it's overcompensating it. Since we've gotten the third pick, I think I've thought about Ace Bailey every hour since it's happened. Okay. Or any name. I'm just I love Ace Bailey. I love VJ Edgecombe. So I'm obsessed with this pick. I'm a draft guy, as you know. So this is my nitty gritty. So I have been, maybe it's overcompensating for not paying attention to the Sixers for multiple months, but I'm back now. I'm excited. If they wouldn't have gotten the pick, I'd be out. I'd be done. I wouldn't be thinking about him until October.
God,
but
could you imagine that?
I'm back.
Yeah. Oof. Well, yeah. Look, and we will get into Ace Bailey in that conversation. But one more as far as Alvarado is concerned. We'll put the bow on the Phillies here. You know, like people ask me all the time, like, who's good when it comes to bullpen? Like, because if you're not watching every day and see this, and even right hand in the air, even me, sometimes I'll be like, they showed somebody the other day in the bullpen, and I'm like, who the hell is that guy? But Alvarado's been with us for quite some time, and nobody is going to be perfect coming out of the bullpen, bar none. Alvarado, though, I think one of the last times we did see him that really dropped our jaw on the floor was when he struck out struck three guys out when the bases were loaded in that game at home. And you know, like the question I guess I would ask for you is, how big of a loss is Alvarado for this team? And of course, he's not going to be there postseason. How good was he pitching this year? And, you know, I think this is why Dombrowski and those scouts get paid the big bucks, right? Like there are plenty of teams out there that have good players that aren't playing for anything that will absolutely move some of these decent pieces and bullpens. And I expect Dombrowski to go out there and find someone. I don't think we're going to entertain any names at this point in time, but let's focus on the loss. How big of a loss is Jose Alvarado to you, Mark Henry Jr.?
It's huge. There's no sugarcoating it. There's just no spin zone I can take, or it's massive. He's our best reliever. He's our most reliable reliever. Seemed like a clubhouse guy who the team rallied around, especially, you know, when you get in jams. And it's really upsetting. You know, I love Alvarado, probably one of my favorite players on the team. You know, that moment with the kid in the stands breaks your heart thinking about it now. But
need to bring him in.
Yeah, they did.
Sign that kid.
It's really there's just no positives. You know that I was kind of the positive guy on the bullpen. I was telling everybody, relax. Nobody or not many teams can match our top four. When you throw Alvarado, Kerkering, Strom, and Romano, now that we can say Romano, but that top four, the way that they had been pitching, especially in May, they'd all been elite. And they've all shown the ability to be elite, whether it's last year or in their career. And I would have put that top four up there with just about any top four in any bullpens in baseball. Now, the problem was, even with that four, our 5 through 8 was nowhere near acceptable. The bottom of our bullpen is not good enough. And it's a shame because I think that they have a lot of guys in the farm system who seem to be killing it in the minors out of the bullpen or even as starters. I think that the weird part about this conversation about what you're trading for in the bullpen is we have 8 starters. We have legitimately 8 starters right now. And I don't know how you handle that in relation to trades and how you handle that in relation to putting some guys in the bullpen. And everybody's got, you know, the magic bullet answer on what you should do. But you just run down the list. Wheeler's not going to the bullpen. Luzardo's not going to the bullpen. Sanchez isn't going to the bullpen. Aaron Nola has like $100 million for the next 5 years, or maybe more than that on his deal. I think it's like 150, actually. I think I way undershot that number for the next 5 years on that deal. Mick Abel just came up and threw, you know, one of the best first start debuts I've ever seen from any pitcher in baseball. Andrew Painter's coming up in the next month and a half, and he's going to be a starter when he gets up. Taijuan Walker just got put back in the rotation, and to be fair to him, has been extremely serviceable. And then you have Ranger Suarez, who I didn't even mention, who's been fantastic his last 2 timeouts and also has experience in the bullpen, but is a free agent. And it's hard to put a guy in a contract year in the bullpen. Now, what I would say to that is they did it to Zach Eflin. Zach Eflin went to the bullpen for us in 2022 in the playoffs and still got paid a good chunk of change from the Tampa Bay Rays to go be a starter and then ended up in Baltimore. But Ranger will be in the bullpen in October. I think that's at this point with all the options, I think that's pretty fair to say. And I think Nola's in the rotation in October, almost regardless of what happens if he's healthy. I think he's shown enough in the playoffs to probably, even if he has a bad year, probably get at least a shot to start. You're not taking any of Wheeler, Sanchez, or Luzardo out. So to me, that means we have Painter and Abel as, potential bullpen guys. I think Painter will be in the bullpen in October. If Andrew Painter, I was arguing about this with Luke yesterday, and he wasn't really even arguing with me, but I got into it with someone online, as I'm one to do. And I said that someone got mad about Andrew Painter getting put in the bullpen. Oh, we can't ruin his routine and all that stuff. I get it. He had Tommy John a year ago, yada, yada, yada. But he's going to be a starter in the regular season. They're going to try to see what he can do at the MLB level as a starter. If we get to October and Andrew Painter has a sub ERA under 4, and there's not a spot for him in the rotation because you have Wheeler, Sanchez, Luzardo, and Nola, they're not sending him down. No. He's going to the bullpen. And that's just natural. So if we're now talking about a bullpen that has Orion, Strom, Romano, Ranger, Painter, and either Abel or what you get for Abel on the trade market, then that's interesting. How much do you really have to go spend on a bullpen guy? Or do you have to go just get kind of a lower level guy to get you through the regular season and get you to the playoffs? Because I do think as long as, all the starters stay healthy, which probably isn't likely, but you can't really plan for injury. So as long as all the starters stay healthy, I think they're going to have a lot of bullpen options come October, even if they don't make too many moves.
Interesting. Yeah. And it's a long season. Nobody's
about getting there. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody's panicking. And Dombrowski's been there and done that, made many trades over the years. So it's great to have the riches that they have right now. Of course, with Mick Abel coming in and what he was able to do in that first start. And it's funny because I made the joke over the weekend with my father-in-law, hand in the air. I'm like, Painter's been the guy that I've always heard about. Like Mick Abel, what the hell? Where did this come from? So again, I'm not Mr. Minor League Report here every week, but again, Painter was the guy that everybody was building up this hype around, and Abel came in and delivered, and that was an awesome game, 1-0, and welcome to the big time leagues. As far as it's like these big time pitchers that don't get run support. You just you're in a different world when that happens for you, and you're able to mow down these batters and you lose a game 1-0. It happened a lot, and I don't even want to put him in that conversation, but he was great. Cole Hamels. I felt like Cole Hamels when he was in his heyday, he didn't get run support. He would go out there. Of course, you had Doc Roy would go out there and want to get run support. Sometimes he would lose some 1-0 ball games. And then you go around the league, and it's just a different level when you go out there and you hold it down, you hold the team to 1 run, strike out 9, and then come away with a loss. And there's nothing you could do about it, but that's what makes baseball.
Skeen's the best pitcher I've seen since Pedro.
Oh, God. So
I haven't seen anything like it since.
When does he have Tommy John though? That's the only thing that I'm mad. It's
we'll see.
Yeah, it's going to happen. It just sucks, but you're right. Well, hopefully it doesn't. We'll see. But he is unbelievable, Mark. He's unbelievable.
One last thing I just have to get off my chest before we move on.
Sure.
Orion Kerkering. People are dumb about Orion Kerkering, and I just want to make that clear. Devin Caney, who I like, and I'm friends with her
I saw that tweet.
We have to have an honest conversation about Orion Kerkering. And I actually don't have as much of a problem with the tweet, because when she sent it, it was first and second, no outs, and then he gets 3 outs, so it worked out. But the tweet, if you want to say, whatever, that's fine. The replies to that tweet have me thinking we are the dumbest fan base in the history of
on
fans.
social media. Absolutely.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we're top 3.
The way people are talking about Orion Kerkering is like every time he has a bad outing, it's like, oh, well, we got to send him down, or, he's done. He's never been as good. That didn't live up to the hype. Orion Kerkering had a 2.29 ERA in 64 appearances last year. He was one of the 20 best relievers in baseball last year.
Wow.
And now we're just throwing him out. He's got a 4.08 ERA. It's not like he's, murdering the team. There's been plenty of worse ERAs. And if you look in May, he's got like a 1.3 ERA in May. He's really, really found his stride over the last 7 or 8 appearances. 7 of his last 8 games have been scoreless appearances. And I love Matt Strom commenting on that tweet and saying, please enlighten me.
And she didn't respond, though. That was my only thing about Devin. I love Devin. Devin's my girl. Look, you got a professional athlete that comes back. You respond to him. Like, let's go. All right. You said what you said. He wants to enlighten him. And you could take it however you want, but let's get that conversation going. What was your issue? And I would love to know what Strom said. I'm right there with you. Ruben Amaro backed it up. I did like his thoughts on that. But yeah, Mark, we are with social media. We're top 3 worst. Like I would say Knicks / New York, us, and then what? Like a Chicago.
I will say this is under the radar. This is one team, but the Lions fans are annoying online. I don't know if anybody else has dealt with that. I think the Lions fans are worst of the worst. And maybe that's also because they're Michigan fans, and I think they're up at the top as well. Yeah. But yeah, those I have for some reason, a lot of Michigan, Detroit followers who come at me anytime I say anything negative about the Lions. Yeah.
All right, we will talk some football in just a second. We'll end on that, but I do want to go ahead and shift gears if we could and get on over to the association. Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals. I know where I'm at. I know where you're at. It's all about the ECF in our minds, and I think a lot of people out there are probably in agreement. I would imagine Commissioner Silver is begging for the Knicks to win this series against the Pacers because something tells me that Indiana versus OKC or Indiana versus Minnesota, ain't going to be doing too well in the ratings book. But at the end of the day, when you start to think, wow, on television right now, they're asking, should 76ers trade for Kevin Durant? He's going somewhere. Trade what? What are we trading?
3 and Paul George is the idea. I wouldn't trade 3. It's a non-starter. It's a joke to me. The guy's 37.
Yeah. Like Paul George for him straight up. Cool.
But you can't pour future assets into the current team. No. It has to be about the future.
Why would the Sixers even think twice about that?
Yeah, we can get to the whole Sixers conversation in a minute with the draft. People are deranged about this pick.
All right. So with that, Western Conference Finals tonight, I know that you and I are and everybody else, we can't wait for the Knicks and the Pacers, but tonight's going to be a pretty good game. These two teams have battled this year. I think they split 2-2. Really intriguing. They played back-to-back one time where they both won on the opponent's floor. I just look at the number, Mark, and I say to myself that, like, the Minnesota Timberwolves continue to be undervalued here. They have been. They were last year. They've proven their worth, and then here they are. I know that OKC is a damn good basketball team, but I'm sick and tired of us possibly saying that the Minnesota Timberwolves aren't. And I know these things have ebbs and flows in a game 1. Like, could Minnesota lose by double digits tonight? Of course, anything is possible. But if you get the best of their effort, I do expect this to be a good ball game. And I'll take the 7.5 with the dog tonight. I feel pretty good about that play. Again, anything can happen. We know how these things play out. It is a 7-game series. Got to win 4. But I like the dog here tonight. Anything for you on this one?
No, I think the series is going 7. If I had to guess, I would pick OKC to win it, but I'm really not confident at all in this series. I can't imagine I'll be betting on it too much unless I, watch the games and see some matchup I like. But Timberwolves are 25-6 in their last 31 games.
Jeez.
Like they're a really good team, and they've really found their stride and their depth here late in the year when they've gotten healthy. And yeah, they're really good. The OKC thing is crazy. They have the highest point differential in NBA history, the best point differential in NBA history. The next 10 teams on that list did not lose 3 games before they got to the conference finals. OKC just lost 3 games to Denver in one series, let alone 2 series combined. And I think they did only lose 3 games. I think they swept their first series, if I remember correctly. But I do think it concerns me that last series was so hard for Oklahoma City. And I know that Jokic is great. I know how good he is. Denver's not that good. That team is not that deep. They do not have a lot of ancillary options to Jokic. And it concerns me that OKC was pushed to the limit. Now, you could say how close were they pushed? They came out and blew them out in game 7. They got to a game 7, though. So I think it's fair to think Minnesota has a really good chance to win this series. I think it kind of goes along with the same reasons I think Indiana has a really good chance to win their series.
Yeah, and that's going off tomorrow, and that one is at 4.5. Again, I think the dogs continue to bark here. I like the Pacers in that game 1. I like the Pacers in that series. And flip a coin as far as the T-Wolves and OKC Thunder. I didn't want to buy into the Thunder winning the title this year or getting to the NBA Finals due to the fact that the SGA and the MVP and those expectations to build up, but it just seems like it's going to happen for them. We'll see what happens tonight, though. Game 1 is going to be a lot of fun over these next 2 weeks with both of these series. Quickly on the Pacers and the Knicks. And again, we have all this attention, of course, because of New York and the fan base, and they're crazy, and we deal with it here in Philadelphia. But this is a little throwback vibe, man, dating all the way back to the last time that these two teams faced off in the Eastern Conference Finals back in 2000, Mark Henry Jr., when the starting 5 for the New York Knicks consisted of Larry Johnson, Latrell Sprewell, Patrick Ewing, Charlie Ward, and Allen Houston. How about that?
That's something. It's not going to be enough because the Pacers are winning the series in 5. 5. Sorry, the New York. The Pacers are going to take care of the New York Sam Ostries. Is what I meant to say. Big Knicks fan. I mean, the biggest Knicks fan I know.
Huge Knicks fan.
Is Sam Ostry. The guy has a Jalen Brunson poster on his wall. He's got a Knicks tattoo on his chest. And I don't know if you heard, Sean, there's actually no reason for them to play this series.
Really?
Yeah. Sam said that the Pacers have negative chance. No shot. 0% chance.
Look, we got to give him some credit here because he was on the Knicks in that Boston.
He didn't say the Knicks were going to beat Boston before the series. He said it once they were up 2-0.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah. That's fair. So now he is at least sticking to his guns. Bernard's the best, though. Bernard's like, I could see the Pacers sweeping him. And it's just like, we know what you're going to say here. But
Bernard's
you like him in 5, though.
Yeah, 5. I'm being a little. It's probably 6, but I'm being a little. Just add a little juice to it to say 5. I really do think Indiana's the better team. They're 48-19 in their last 67 games. This is a team that stunk to start the year. They started 10-15. Since that moment, they've been one of the best teams in basketball. And what I would say is that I think that the Tom Thibodeau style has flamed out of the playoffs every time he's ever made the playoffs. He plays his guys a ton of minutes. He's done it again here this year. He's done it again in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. It's usually catches up to them in the second round. I think it catches up to them against a team that goes 10 deep, that runs up and down the court, that takes a million threes. I think Indiana is a nightmare matchup for New York. And I know people are going to say, oh, well, they just beat Boston, who takes a million threes. Boston had a big man who looked like he has a syndrome that we don't know, an unnamed syndrome. They have Jason Tatum, who went out with 3 minutes of game 5 when they were down to game 4. And who knows what happens in the last 3 minutes there? Who knows what happens once it's 3-1 if Jason Tatum's out there? I mean, they beat him by 30 without Jason Tatum on home court in game 5 to get it to game 6. So people are, and Sam's the biggest proponent of this, making the Indiana playoff run and the Indiana era of basketball here. It's just injuries based. It's just injuries. The Cavs were so hurt. Darius Garland missed 2 games. Donovan Mitchell missed a half once they were down 30, and Evan Mobley missed 1 game.
Yeah.
It's not like that whole series was injury prone for Cavs. They had everybody out there when they got blown out by 40.
I think the
halftime,
Pacers win
basically.
that series if everybody's healthy.
I totally agree. I
Yep.
totally
I wasn't
agree.
saying it before, but man, come on, you know.
And I don't know if I say the same thing about New York. If Kristaps is Kristaps, and if
Oh,
Jason
yeah.
Tatum plays the last couple games of that series, I don't think New York's here. So I think if we're talking about the team that's here because of injuries, it's much more New York than Indiana. And I get that they didn't have to play Dame in round one. They were going to beat the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah.
Let me just tell you, the Bucks stunk. And
Yeah.
they stunk all year long. They weren't going to beat the Pacers in round one. I don't care if Dame Lillard was out there. I don't care who was out there. So I think we have all really underrated the Pacers all year long. And I don't think I talked enough about in the second half of the year the run that they were on.
All right, so that is tomorrow. So you like Pacers in game one, catching the 4.5?
I'm not betting any of the games. I bet them plus 130 to win the series for 10 units. It was a
Nice.
10-unit banger, massive bet for me. So I'm in hard on the Pacers at plus 130. I think that numbers went down a little bit. But
cover your ears because I am not rooting against your wager at all. But man, from an NBA fan's perspective, it's like the vibe is up here if the Knicks get there, and I don't want to see that at all, right? But at least like there's some new juice and wow, and you're talking about teams that have never won a championship before, 3 out of the 4. So it's like we should have this buzz, but it feels like it exists with the Knicks, somewhat OKC, T-Wolves a little bit there, and then the Pacers are the Pacers, just completely being slept on again after what they've been able to put together. We'll see what happens, though. Good luck on all those plays. Marky Pucks, we are down to the final 4 as far as the Stanley Cup is concerned here. Any plays for you tonight? Panthers and Canes. Canes at home, and then tomorrow the big one with the Edmonton and Dallas. That's going to be a great series. Both of them are going to be great series. Both have been some really good teams over the last few seasons here. Anything for you in the NHL?
I have Panthers plus 750 to win the cup. Placed it at the beginning of the playoffs. They were the team that I decided to ride with this year. So I'm all Panthered up. Watch that game 7, 6-1. Didn't have to sweat it. Here we are. So I'm a Panthers fan. I'll be watching that tonight. I'll place a Panthers money line bet tonight.
That got the 6-1. I watched that game in the hospital. It was 3-0. And it was 3-1, and I'm like, ooh, all right, not dead yet. And then the Panthers scored again. I'm like, all right, that game's over. And they've scored 6-1. That's funny. I didn't even see the final score. Yeah, a lot's been going on around here, but that's all right. We're back. We're easing into it. Great week of shows coming your way. Shout out Sam Ostry and Sean Bernard holding it down for all things picks and roll, talking all things NBA playoffs. We got Luke Arcani was checking in, doing a great job with Crossing Broad live at the Ball Yard too as well. Phillies on the road in Colorado. Game 2 tonight. Nothing happening there. Just enjoy the game. Back tomorrow. Brand new daily ticket coming your way. Mark Henry Jr. can be heard every Saturday from 11 to 1, the Tough Cover radio show. He's in Chicago holding it down with his 9 to 5. Great to have you, Mark, on this beautiful morning here in the Delaware Valley. Safe travels. And any final thoughts you want to get off your chest here?
Ace Bailey.
Ace Bailey.
It's Ace Bailey time. It's Ace Bailey o'clock. I'll also take VJ, but
he's
no Con Knuckle. Get Con Knuckle. Get the Confederacy out of my face.
Ooh, it's a good line. I like that. He's a reach. It's a reach, right? Like he's a good player, but you can't take him that high.
Yeah, I think he has absolutely no star equity. Whereas Ace, VJ, Malawak, Trey Johnson, you can squint with any of those 4 guys and say, wow, the upside is something that really changes a franchise. Con Knuckle's upside is like, oh, he could be a better Bogdan Bogdanovic.
Can the Sixers screw this up?
Absolutely. Take Con Knuckle, and they screwed it up.
They won't.
I don't think they will either. I don't think they will.
Is Con Knuckle being discussed in that?
Yes, absolutely.
In that number? Really?
I would say he's the 3rd guy behind Ace and VJ. And a lot of Sixers fans are out there. And it's not just like I would love to assign it to like the right wing Sixers fans and who want a white guy, but it really hasn't been that. It's the nerds love Con Knuckle. So I think his upside is extremely limited, and I think his defense at 6'5" is going to be a problem. He's too slow to guard any guard that matters, and he's too short to guard any wing that matters.
Yeah, I'm not feeling that at all. But I am feeling Ace Bailey, and I was with Rutgers. We'll see what happens, though. Again, Sixers are back in the conversation. Gotta love it. All right, enjoy the games. Good luck on all of those plays. Mark Henry Jr. can be found on socials. Give him a follow. Check out the Tough Cover Radio Show every Saturday right here on The Gambler. We'll talk to you. Peace.